Ok, Jeff. Nid cafodd ysganiad sef bod y corff yma yn cael ei recordio a bydd ar gael ar-lein yn rhedeg ymlaen. So ydych yn hapus gyda hyn, diolch.
Sorry, we've got no translation.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Thank
Can you hear translation? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Sorry. So we're just making the statement that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded for the sake of minute taking. The first item on the paper is to elect a chairperson for the committee. And we've had nomination Elfed Roberts. Okay, well, thank you very much for a new period as chair of this committee, and thank you all for joining with us in both online and the office. So the second item is to elect a vice chair. Iwan Hughes has been nominated. Okay, thanks very much. So are there any apologies? No, not that we know. We do have. Yeah, we know that one of our members is feeling very ill, and so we take her absence as an apology, and we wish her speedy recovery. But if she comes in, well, very welcome. Okay. Does anyone have any declaration of interest on any matter? And is everyone hearing the translation? Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Right, so any declarations of interest? If not, let's move on to item 5 minutes of the last meeting. Has everyone seen them? Can we have a proposal there of true accounts? Seconded? Okay. All right, she's joined. Okay. Right, so the minutes are true account. Welcome if you just joined us. And hopefully you can hear the translator. So just test that. Can you hear the translation? I'll just send her a message regarding translating.
If you do require interpretation, so you can click on interpretation at the bottom of your screen and choose English. Snap the interpretation of Cymraeg and stuff like that.
So I'm just going to talk now. Nobody's saying anything, but I'm in the English Order channel. If you can hear me, that means you're hearing the translation. So hopefully you can do that. So can you hear that now? Yeah, you're hearing us? Excellent. Well, a very warm welcome to the translation, and welcome to the Eryri National Park, and a very warm welcome. And we're very, very grateful to have your input into these meetings.
Can you hear us right?
No, there's a strange noise I'm hearing. Oh, it's gone.
Somebody's muted it, I think.
Problems.
No, there's a strange noise. Yeah, I'm hearing it too. Can Salamatu hear me?
Yes, bore
Salam-
da, Pau. Good morning, everybody. Very nice to be here. Can you hear me now?
Dan, dan ni'n clywed chi'n iawn wan.
Yes, we're hearing you. We're hearing
Is
you.
there any?
Are you hearing the
noise on my
translation?
side at all?
So, Salamatu, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you very well. I
Right.
don't hear-
So you are hearing me. That's great.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah, that's excellent.
To get
Okay.
the translation, if you can choose interpretation on the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, they don't realise that you are hearing me already. Can you
Oh,
tell
she's-
them?
She's done the translation, she can hear.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Joe.
Dan ni, iawn, so ni mlaen i'r...
Right, so let's move on to
the
next item. Iwan, are you leading on this? Yes.
So, item,
Right. So several items. Which continues on the worksheet. And so both points are still pending. Okay, fine. Was there anything to be taken up with then? No? Okay, well, let's move on then to item 7, to the internal audit annual report. Hello, Lynette, you're leading on this. Excellent, thank you. Right, so let's move on. It gives me great pleasure to submit this annual report to you, and I hope that it gets your approval. A little bit of introduction and context to this report. It's a requirement in the worldwide internal audit reports and a model of operation and practice that I provide a report or conclusion on organisational level on efficiency, effectiveness, risk management and internal governance. And so one needs to prepare a report or a general conclusion annually. And this general conclusion includes governance issues, risk management and internal management of the organisation. So appropriate use of the resources of the park obviously is very important and essential to ensure that the services offered are of the greatest standard. So the purpose of an internal audit is to give confidence to the Chief Finance Officer and therefore the entire authority and then the public that those resources available have been managed and used in an appropriate manner. As one comes to the annual conclusion, it's important to note that assurance can never be complete. The best one can do is offer reasonable advice that there are no weaknesses in the entire system of internal management. And based on the internal audit work that's been completed, in my opinion, the authority has a firm internal management structure and risk management structure and governance structure. And the results that have been completed support the annual conclusion on the effectiveness and adequacy of the internal management frameworks and risk management of the authority. And this also ties in with my experience as the role of these authorities' internal audit manager over the years and the standard and implementation of the management team and its officers. The work that contributes to this opinion is the communication, the support for members, and the audit of volunteers. The levels of surety audit fall into 4 categories, and they are high, sufficient, restricted, or no security. I'm pleased to say that all my inquiries have fallen into the highest category, or sufficient. Planning service has received a sufficient category, support for members, high, volunteers, sufficient. And also, continuity work was held in order to ensure that there had been satisfactory implementation. And after receiving evidence, we saw that these have been implemented fully. So moving on to the internal audit plan for 2025-26, many of these fall into or from the previous category. Firstly, the use of consultants, work centres and work and continuity. Out of 23-24-25. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Lynette. Any comments? Tim, do you want to come in? Yeah, I've scrutinised this, and 2 out of 3 of the reports I'm very happy with. They reflect well on the work that's been done. The one that I would like to draw your attention to is the support for members. I have to say, I feel that the high assurance after getting 4 responses out of 18, I find that very difficult to accept. If I only received 4 out of 18 responses, I would want to know what's going on here. I mean, how much information here is there, and I find it very difficult to believe. I think maybe a workshop should be held to, investigate this. As it is now, I can say that I'm happy with this. Thank you. Do you want to respond, Lynette? Certainly disappointed to receive only 4 responses to the questionnaire, but as it says in the report, it was difficult to interpret the significance of the low-level responses. It was probably a reflection of that there were no strong feelings, but yeah, we certainly follow it up if that's what you wish us to do. Thanks, Lynette. Yeah, I was going to actually raise the same points. I'd like to thank Lynette for her response. I don't think I would accept the report either on the basis of that particular point. I just don't think that a lack of response reflects the fact that we have no strong feelings on it. I disagree with that. I think what we're going to investigate here is why the people have not responded. And that may delve deeper into what people and why people are feeling. I just think 4 of 18 is low. I'm not going to repeat what Tim just said, but that was just one of the things. Could I ask a question regarding the audit on communications and planning? Again, I felt that, I mean, it's obvious to me that there's been progress and will happen as well, but I just want to know where we're at in terms of putting systems in place and timings for that. Just an update really is what I'm looking for in terms of that. Well, in terms of the action steps, the plan intends on being completed, staff have been trained, and obviously there's a bit of work to be done. But it's ongoing. Yeah, excellent. And just following on from the discussion in the last meeting of communication and how that will help with regards to timing. I think that's something we need to keep an eye on. Could I just check as well, does the system allow for answers and responses through medium of Welsh? Yeah, so it's a total system, holistic. Excellent, thanks. Yeah, matters with regards to the plans this year is what I want to raise. I was expecting in a plan like this there'd be more work done on accounting systems of internal management and so on. Is that happening, and are they separate projects, or is this the full audit work? Well, certainly there's an element at all times of looking at the use of consultants, advisors, and that there are arrangements made, and that there is a logic, a reason for employing external consultants. We do look at that process and the expenditure of such advisors, but then they do weave in to the accounting system. Because when I looked at the annual accounts, I can't remember which year, but I saw a number of reports have been made, and I was wondering whether there was any work being done to ensure that the external auditor, when they come to look at it, that work could show that work had been done to move things forwards. Naturally, the plan, although ratified or approved today, it is possible to make adaptations during the year as well, and that is based on discussions with the chief executive, the finance director, and a corporate affairs manager. But it's a very flexible plan, and therefore definitely possible to make plans during the year. And so the basis of the plan is to deal with risk. I think there are other things that are present there. We should be looking at things that are of higher risk on the risk register. Yeah, I accept that, but remember this is an audit that was discussed previously of things that had slipped, and that's why it was in the plan. Okay, thanks. And I'm sure that we will work together on resolving these. And does anyone wish to raise any other points? No? Well, Lynette, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for the reports. Thank you. That's great. Fantastic. Okay, let's move on to item 8. Welcome, Ivor. Updating report regarding external funding reports, finance reports. John, over to you. Thanks, Chair. This is just an update for you with regards to external grants, just that you can have an overview of the work that's going on, and there's lots of things happening, and I hope it's of use to you. Just to start with, in part 2, I'm sure you're aware that the government grants towards sustainable land management, which will be 2022-2025, that's come to an end now. So you see on those bullet points at the bottom of page 1 that there was money, we came in on time, and on budget. So this full report goes back to government. I didn't have time to submit this to you today, but this will be submitted to you in the Performance Management Committee. So moving on, same fund, the fund for 25-27, we put in the applications, they've been accepted, as you can see, and the themes this year are promoting biodiversity and restoring nature, and these projects are reviewed, and so you can see one from 2021 on wildlife and rivers, and now ancient woodlands, and then there is a look at sustainable electricity, and somewhat on building the work as well. Building on the work, you'll see on 205 that will contribute at point 3 of that report, and you can see the work there. and you can see how that was done a few weeks ago. Paragraph 3, you see the partnership with the National Parks contributes a little bit. That's the money coming in. And the hope is that that money will increase in years to come. It's something we're monitoring. We were unfortunately unsuccessful in the Nature Fund. It was a project up to £1 million that focused on habitats. But having spoken to several partners, it was an extremely competitive fund. What they have done is ask us to re-present this. So maybe we'll get something out of it in the future. Paragraph 4 highlights the new energy project that we're really excited about. There'll be 3 project officers involved and 2 support officers established in the team now, worth about 1.8 million in the first year. And in years 2 and 3, I'm very pleased to say that the interest expressed in this project has been very positive indeed. And there are great expectations from this, a lot of interest expressed. All very good, positive projects. And then the Peatlands project runs until 2028. So I'm very pleased to say that this is a 3-year project, not year by year. We were having great trouble in terms of staffing because of that, and this annual funding. So we've now been able to get something a bit longer term, and so that's 1.2 million over 3 years, which makes it much easier for the team. And so there's some excellent work that's happening there. And we've seen a lot of work happening in Bulk Grice with Rachel. They were very pleased about that work. And if you turn the page over to 4.3, as you can see, you'll see the money from the National Grid. We're doing very well on that National Grid grant, more than any other landscape in Britain, by a long way, I think. So, yeah, there's a really good number of projects happening there, and they continue. We will continue in future. So, we're still going to be pursuing that money in future. And you can see 4.4. Some pretty important things there. 2 applications, and there's one been submitted for the Betws Tourist Information Centre, 300,000 each. Very successful there, and be aware of the work that's being done there in the centre in Betws. So all that contributes to it. And paragraph 5 merely highlights when we come to you as members with regard to the strategic grants, that you get an input and steer and plan those. And that's it, I think. And just adding 2 new clauses for our priorities, and they're highlighted in Appendix 2. And you see them, they're 12 and 13, offering opportunities for people in open groups, for people who are disadvantaged, and 13, ensuring that national parks are aware of the authority's projects. And so I hope that you agree with those. That's it, I think, Chair. Appendix 2 is something you've already adopted and approved. Obviously on that, as you're aware, we were reviewing the Eryri plan, and we were able to look at the priorities within those, including the local development plan. And as you're aware as well, there's an opportunity to look at some of the projects in terms of detail. But that's basically the process in its entirety. And then Appendix 3 just lists all the current projects, capital projects that we're implementing at the moment. So I hope that's of use to you. And as you can see, there's a whole load of things going on, and we feel that we're getting a good return and very exciting stuff going on. But please feel free to ask questions. Yeah, thanks. Louise wants to come in first.
I'm just unmuting myself. I was just wondering, have you got any specific information on any of the projects? We went to a national park conference in Crickhowell a couple of years ago, and they spoke about replenishing fish stocks in rivers. So the Wild Water Aurary project, any update on that? Because the Tycini River, which was once packed with gorgeous brown trout, now has not much left in it. So any update on that, please?
Mae'r prosiect dŵr gwyllt Eryri yn dim ond newydd.
Right, the Eryri Wild Water Project is a new one. We're applying for the funding. It's only just started, so there's not much detail on that. But it's focusing specifically on the Maldac River, but it could be diverted to other rivers too. The money, that is. It wasn't looking, I don't recall it looking at Tycini, but I'll raise your point.
Thank you.
A number of rivers, are of concern to people. We were down with Natural Resources Wales with Nant Francon yesterday. Lots of exciting projects going on there, but also I think there will be opportunities to highlight different projects and better secure in specific. So maybe a chance to discuss things there.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay, Louise?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, thanks, Chair. Right. Just on the back of this, I understand that Natural Resources Wales doesn't have a fisheries department at the moment. If you remember the conference 2 years ago, referred to by Louise 2 years ago, since then they've gotten rid of that department. That's part of their budgetary challenges, if I understand. But yeah, that's just a point I was making there. Just wanted to ask a question regarding 3.3, the Nature Network Fund. We've changed a little bit in terms of the requirements on this. In this new application, is there anything different, Jonathan? Well, yeah, an amendment has been made. The exact detail I don't know, but the team received the feedback and accepted it. And following the unsuccessful first run, they made a few refinements. I have to admit, I don't know exactly what they were before it was submitted. It would be very interesting to see how they made it more attractive. I can pass the details on. Yeah, I'd just like to see it. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, Tim, next. Yeah, 3 points. First, excellent. It builds on good history that Eryri has with the farming community and the excellent officers we've had. I think this is a good chance to renew that relationship and move on. So I welcome this very much. Very pleased to see that. Second, just going through the list of projects, I am just delighted to see them. There is brilliant work being done here. All being done by the Eryri team with old partners, and the one that shines for me, that stands out, is the Celtic project, which, what's been done on this and where we've arrived at is particularly good. And I would say we need to do as much as we can to praise this. This has gone the extra mile, more than the call of her duty as this day. And I want this to continue. And the third thing I want to raise, one of the new things here, number 12, I would like to add to that we're talking about landscapes. I think it's important that people from deprived groups get the opportunity to have leisure in our natural parks. I think there's a whole load more people in more communities, South Asian communities that use Eryri every time they come out in groups. Now, unfortunately, we had the drowning, but that's just one side of it. We could do so much more for people from these diverse communities to raise awareness, because we want to tell them, because their awareness of the national park and what we're about is very low, and in terms of leisure and right, so to confirm, landscape, second, access to the countryside, and just import that into it. Yeah, I'm sure Johan will add to that at the end, but thank you. And please, we will pass on your thanks to the teams. Yeah, and the others too. Yeah. I was absolutely delighted reading this, and what we can do is immense. Right, if you're proposing that change, the committee have to agree it. So quite suddenly, just for your information, I agree it's been very successful and very important work being done. I think the important thing is that it does not come to an end. Discussions have started, they've been very positive, and the intention is to put in a new application with similar ambition, and the work would be about £10 million worth, I think. So quite possibly it won't be this authority leading on it, just because different reasons, but I hope that by keeping this back, we'll be a key partner in this. Yeah, just Chair, a lot of the money has come in, but we can still pursue this fund, yeah? Well, I've had discussions with it is possible, I don't remember the term, but even though we're out of the European Union, we can still, there is still a role that can benefit, and I can't remember the term for countries outside the EU, but we need to do a bit more research on it, but there is potential to get some money. Yeah, thanks. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Right, so item 9. Oh yeah, there was a proposal there from Tim on the change of wording, making priority 12 access to the countryside. I'm very comfortable with it, but does everyone? Right, so is everyone happy to add that as a fifth recommendation there for 7.5? Sorry, I should have gone through it. So first is the focus on capital monies. Second, the current and new. Recommendation 3 is the one that Tim wanted to change, which was to confirm matters of project future, and as Tim has proposed, that we include as well access, to the consent vote, which I thought was implicit, but and then 4 regarding projects, and then the final one. So can everybody show those in support? Yes, it's carried.
Oce, yn i eitem 9 wan. Cyn ymlaen i eitem 9, Salama Trw, da chi dal i clywed ni'n iawn ac yn dilyn y trafodaetha?
Checking that you can hear me and that you are able to follow the discussions.
Yes, I am.
Na, oce, diolch yn fawr. Na ni,
Great, thank you for confirming. The Corporate Work Programme 2024-2025 Progress Report on the Work Programme. You will be familiar with this, well, most of you anyway. This is the final report for this year on the Corporate Work Programme, and these responses will then be incorporated into the annual report. And you will see them again in September. So the recommendation is to examine and discuss the attached work programme, and we usually run through it page by page. So that takes us to page 38, first of all. So page 38, so if you want to raise any points, please raise your hand. Page 39. On 1.5, the strategy involving the path on the Wyddfa. These 2 are on red. What's the reason for the slip in the timetable there? There have been issues in the access team, but we're getting to grips with that. And hopefully we'll be back on track as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Iwan and Tim. 40 and on to 41, 42, 43, page 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, and 81. Any comments on or any points that you'd like to raise? I'd like to add in Appendix 1. That refers to the remit letter that we get from Welsh Government, and it feeds into the Corporate Work work programme. Earlier on in the report, there's reference to the relevant part of that work. Delys has her hand up.
Hi, bore da. Ia, oedd na
Good morning.
rasio tudalenna fan'na, ni'n
The
siarad hynny efo
I was trying to keep up with them
Felly,
pages. I just wanted to go back to page 73, if I may, under 5.2, to review and monitor the engagements strategy in order to get the KPIs. I know we were discussing this at the end of the meeting. I'm hoping that I'll be here. I have to leave at 11:45. I just wanted to raise those points, really. I'm not sure if all of the indicators are in that strategy, but I'll raise those points when we discuss that item later. But I just wanted to note it here that I had a question in relation to that. If you won't be present in the meeting later, hopefully you will be, then you can send me the question. Yes, I'll do that. Just one or two things, nothing major really. Yes, I'll do that, of course, if I won't be here at the time. Thank you. Can we have a show of hands that you're happy with the recommendation? Everybody in agreement? Show of hands, thank you. Thank you very much. So on to item 10, the authority's risk profile. You are reporting on this once again. So with the authority's risk profile, it's adopted in the Performance and Resources Committee that we actually look at the risk profile of the authority. Every time this committee meets, there are 3 categories: high, medium and low, and this report gives an update of the report that was previously presented to this meeting on the 19th of March, sorry. There are so 3 are classed as high, 14 as medium, 2 classed as low. So none of the risk have increased or decreased scores since the last review. There is one mistake in the Welsh only on page 83, item 17, saying that it's no change there. The risk has not increased. We spotted that it had increased the last time, but it's staying the same for this time around. So apologies for that. The recommendation is that we discuss the content of the report. And from page 85 onwards, you see the risk profile. If you need further information or greater detail. Tim? A couple of things really. One is Plastan y Bwlch regarding the measurements. I would like to see a measure being included on the contingency plan if the HLF doesn't work out with regard to managing people's expectations. And we have discussed that, but we do have the situation where the comms have to work really hard on that. If we fail on a HLF, of course, so I think we should include that. With regard to cyber safety or cyber security, I've had a bit of experience outside of here, but in Cynefin we always said we're safer than the majority of the people because we're doing everything through the medium of Welsh. But about a month ago, and I will share this because we've had permission, we had an email to the finance section asking for information about our bank, and the only reason that something serious happened was because the individual who received it was not the person who was supposed to have it, and he sounded about chi rather than ti, and they knew They're much more sophisticated than the AI has a lot. And so I would say this really gave us quite a scare. And I think we should be aware that we are getting this level of cyber threats at the moment, and we should be aware of that. We may say that we're doing everything that we possibly can, but I think we should be reviewing them constantly, and I'd be very happy to get you, whoever's responsible for cybersecurity here, in touch with the ones in Cynefin. The other thing was perhaps the election that's coming up in next May, because we're going into a situation where there's a lot of insecurity. There's potential there that there may be problems with regard to continuity with the government if things move one way or the other. I'm not sure what we should note there, but I think it's something that we should consider. Thank you for that, Tim. Happy to include both. That's wise to include those on the list. Can you send me the contact of the person you mentioned in Cynefin, and I'll send it on to Nia. Two things I wanted to mention on the page 88 onwards. It's in Welsh and English. The inherent risk. It's in both columns rather than the rest of the risks. I think it's a typo, probably. That's not the main point, because I'm new. Is this where we're at, or is this where we're trying to get to? Because I've seen systems like this in the past where the inherent risk has been demonstrated, where we are now and where we're trying to reach. So I'm not what the remaining risk is. Is this where we are or where we're trying to be? The remaining risk is where we're trying to get there with, say, with matters such as risk measures, such as the ones that have been noted under the specific numbers of the report. Does that help? It doesn't necessarily demonstrate where we are at the moment. That is also a work in progress. I've seen systems where there are 3 columns where that show where we want to get to. Thank you for that. Okay, thanks, Iwan. Thanks, Wyn. Just one quick question. I did have 2, but the first one has already been answered. Article 4. Risk number 8 regarding GDPR. When we consider the signage policy that we're considering later on, there are 2 complaints relating to GDPR. And I just wanted to ensure, really, because the remaining risk, despite the management or control elements, is still the same. I just wanted to make sure that we're doing all that we can in relation to training, and that may be training for us as members as well. Because I can't see that it does say that staff and members need to ensure that the protocols are followed. I just wanted to raise the point, are we doing enough to manage the risks? When you consider that the score is the same and the 2 complaints have come in relation to GDPR. It's a fair enough question. We try to make sure that all of the staff are aware there are risks involved with anything that happens to the authority, and that's a reflection of the fact that it's not significant and the likelihood is medium. Everybody just needs to be aware of what they're doing, and we're trying to raise awareness of that as much as we possibly can among the authority staff. Another thing that we do there may be just small things sometimes that may slip through. When something has happened, it's not been a major issue, it's been a small mistake. And sometimes people haven't just thought about it on the spot. I think when we do become aware of these things and there is a breach, then we are able to respond to it straight away. And then that then reduces the breach and the risk to the authority and breach of the GDPR. Every staff member undertake the training and via the IT systems. They have to do it. It's not by choice. But trying to make it an inherent part of everyday working life is a bit more difficult, of course, but it's difficult to achieve that. But perhaps we should have this discussion on a team level, because it's the finer issues with regard to implementation. Our role as members are trying to bring these threads together and just try and see where the risks are being noted, so that we feel that the scores are coming down. But the risk is continuing the same, although despite the training given. But I accept the comments made. But it could be high there, of course, the risk that is. So, but it's the likelihood that we are trying to get down and decrease, but it remains the same. Ivor, two quick questions regarding developing and the heritage strategy, cultural heritage strategy. This is being drafted and it's coming to the working group. Is this going to come before us in September now, so that we can be a bit more specific? I know it's being undertaken at the moment. I don't want to talk about the cultural heritage head, because she's about to move role as a director, so I don't want to make promises where she won't have the capacity to do it. But there is an intention to bring it to you pretty soon, but I'm not sure if it will be September. It says summer 2025 here. I'll check and I'll confirm that. As a result of what Tim mentioned, if the HLF does fall by the wayside, then that we have a contingency plan. And have we looked at what's left of the SPF in that context? And we would look at it under SPF in the context of PLAS. That's a priority for me, and I'll be initiating those discussions before the summer. It would be good to have a suite of small funds just in case there's bigger one falls, and then rather than having to go to option 3, selling. Ewan? I just wanted to draw your attention. Salamatu has written a question in the chat, but the only thing is the committee can't see the chat, so you need to ask the question, please, if you would, because the chat isn't obvious. Did you want to ask a question verbally?
Yes, I just wanted to I just wanted to ask a question, because I see that the Resources Committee meets only 3 times a year, and I'm just wondering how often the risk assessment policy or whatever document is there is reviewed. It would be nice to see that, prior to every meeting, there is an update, because of course risks continue to manifest in different ways in a big organization like this. You would expect that there would be areas that risks could change from maybe I would say things that are not so severe to more severe risks and things like that, and things that were probably not risks before could become risk. So I was just wondering, how often do you review this Do you do the risk assessment?
Okay. Reit, so ma'r cofrestr risg yn cael ei adolygu.
The risk register is reviewed before every committee, and it's reviewed before it came before you today. And it's also reviewed before the authorities meetings as well. And as a leadership team, we also consider that there may be an element of risk that may arise, and we make a decision at the time that it's added to the risk register, and then that is updated with that additional risk for the performance committee or for the authority, and ensure that's included for the next time. So it's reviewed formally by you 4 times a year, but it's something that's reviewed more consistently by the officers of the authority. Are you happy with that response, Ms. Almato? Thank you, and thank you for joining us and asking the question. So the recommendation is that we discuss the content. Can everybody, can we have a show of hands that we've discussed the content? Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 11, which is the complaints monitoring report. Bethan, this is your item. Thank you. So this is the annual report that reports on the formal complaints that we've had in 2024-2025 in relation to some services. As from you can see, there are 16 complaints that have been received, and of these, 8 had been confirmed or partly confirmed. There are more details about these in the appendix. All complaints were responded to within the allotted time in accordance with the complaints procedure, and none were referred to the Public Service Ombudsman. So I would like to welcome any questions or comments that you have in relation to this report. But as you can see, the recommendation is to note the content of the report. Thank you. Thank you, Bethan. Does anybody want to raise anything about Bethan's report? Please. Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. It's interesting to see and gives us comfort, really, that most things are closed and due attention is given to them, and nothing has been referred to the Ombudsman either. The question I had was in relation to formal complaints or informal complaints or comments. Do you collect those, say, in TICs, or say if people talk to the wardens out in the communities, in our communities? Can we track those at all? Not all of them, if I'm perfectly honest. We've never encouraged staff, if they come across somebody who complain, they should resolve it there and there, if possible, or put steps in place within the department pretty quickly to resolve it. And then that person who's complained is happy. Because often people don't want to make formal complaints, they just want to resolve the issue that they have in front of them at the time. Via email and tracked in that way. There are others that just happen on the fly of the day, so I don't have a full answer to that. But there is a way. Say if there were informal complaints that were drawn to staffs, then you could draw that could be drawn to somebody more senior. Yes, certainly. And I would intervene and say, yes, what can we do to resolve this now? What's gone wrong? And then it is resolved pretty quickly. And I have a record of those, but they're not formal. Edgar, I'm just going to propose the recommendation. Unless anybody wanted to raise any other points. Ellis, you know, when we intended to sell Latana Bullock, I'm surprised that you haven't had any complaints about that, really. Not formally, no. People emailed us complaining about things like that we haven't consulted, but we put a panel in place straight away. Iwan went about it with the management team in order to hold drop-in sessions, etc. And so the resolution was something that was undertaken there and then because it was a quickly evolving situation, and we continue to do that because of the comments that we have from some members of the community at the time. But we didn't get anything formal in. We decided on the day that we were going to discuss it, was didn't we really? Can we have a show of hands that we accept the recommendation? Thank you very much. On to item 12, in fact, revenue and capital outlay reports. Item 12, page 101. There we are, Sian. Welcome, both of you. What you'll see here is the outlay report, and this is the authority's financial situation at when the financial year came to an end. I'd just like to thank Sian and the team for bringing this together because there's a lot of information in front of you. This information is then used to prepare the official accounts. The purpose of this report, as you can see, this is information for you on the income and the expenditure of the authority that's just come to an end in March in comparison with the budget that was set at the beginning of the year. Like I said, the information that's in front of you today will go on to the formal accounts, and they will be presented to you at a later date, and I will be authorizing those as the statutory officer. But this information here is often quite more useful for you as members because the next ones will be much more prescriptive. If you were to summarize this report to what's included really under page 3, paragraph 3.2 of the report on page 102, which is the total net expenditure for the year and how that compares with the budget itself. It's moving on to paragraph 3.3, and what we report there is that there is an underspent net of £401,071 for the year. And you can see if we go on to paragraph 6.2, what we're recommending that you do is that we transfer this balance to the general balances reserve. This the underspent of 401,000. We're foreseeing, as we set the budget back in 2024, we foresaw that there will be a deficit of 600 odd deficit, around 640,000 in fact. But as a result of the grants received, we thought that it was going to be an underspend. But of course, as a result of the grants received to meet the effort, we now have funds to reallocate. It's in a way, it's not a bad thing that we foresaw a deficit, but now we're in a good situation at the end of the year. As you can see, as I noted, if we're looking at the net expenditure for the year, that was over 2.8 net million from 7.9 million. But I would like to emphasize that there were amendments of 2.4 million at the end of the year, and there's more detail on that in Appendix 2. Also, of course, there was grant money that came in later on in the year, which tends to happen. We can't depend on that, of course, and we can't set a budget based on that happening at the end of the year. And as it happened, we received over $1 million of additional grants towards the end of the financial year. The table under 4.2 on page 103 demonstrates there the in and out transfers made from the reserves that we've done during the year. And then you can see at the bottom there, you can see the underspend slippage under the cost and what we've done with it. That is a net figure, and you can see that monies have been transferred out of funds and into the funds as a part of the process of finance admin. And Appendix 3 will give you greater detail about that. There is more information in part 6 of the report about movement in the reserves, and that's on page 107 of your package. You can see there that you authorized the payments, and we're looking at balance of 1.7 million, which is a healthy situation when you consider that the 401 of deficit was moved into the general reserve. We looked at a situation where we had 1.2 million there in comparison with a situation of 7.9 million. There isn't a specific percentage that we'd be looking at. As local authorities, we're looking at 5%, and that's a good situation. Once again, I think, although the concerns moving forward, as things stand at the moment, our reserves are in a healthy situation. With regard to individual services, this information is in Appendix 2. And when you consider the true expenditure relating to the year and the finance regulations, you can see that they're pretty close to the mark. And the planning of underspend and corporate has overspent over about 99,000, but in comparison with the budget, pretty close to the mark. You can see that the interest that's received on the balances is 209 more than the budget, and that allows us to have some left over at the end of the year. And what that reflects is that the authority services do spend in accordance with the budget set, and that additional income has led to a change at the end of the year, but it's a change that's gone in the right direction. The outturn situation for the services, and I apologize that I'm jumping backwards and forwards in the report. It's summarized at the top of page 104 of your report.
So, as you can see there, the expenditure, you can see that surplus of 401,000 that I mentioned earlier. Of course, you can see that there is more detail on the variance, and that appears on 4.5 of the report. And you can see now that the revenue expenditure shows you that as a capital spend. There's a summary that appears in part 5 of the report, and that appears on page 106, and there are more details available in Appendix 5 on page 117. So you will see that we've received more income in that period, and it's not something that causes concern. It's within 10% of the original budget, so I don't think that that's anything to be concerned about at all. So all I have to say to you in terms of the presentation of this report is that if you run through the recommendations, what we're asking you to do as a committee this morning is you'll see that we've got on Agenda 110, which is determination of transfers, as has been outlined in part 4 of the report, where those details refer to point 1, and then those in reserve and transferred, as is outlined in the table, under paragraph 4.2, and further details in appendix 3, and then to note the final situation of the directorships and services in terms of fiscal accounts appearing in 3.6, and report 2, which is to approve the variances that appear in figure 4 and approve the underspend and send that to the general fund, and finally approve the capital spend as part of part 5 of the report. And yeah, well, thanks very much, Dewi. Any other further comments? Apologies, I was in another meeting. I got here late, and yeah. No, I moved the recommendations, but Joe would like to ask a question. Joe, come on in.
Yeah, just on page 114, just picking up on one change in amount on litter cleaning. So the litter cleaning should have been 19,000, but actually ended up being 46,000. Just wondering what could have pushed it up so greatly, please.
Ydy bod manylion hwnna yn rhan 6.3.
Dyddia bod y manylion yn yr adroddiad yn fel ma' yn Dewi yn ond oherwydd prysurdeb a
right, it's because of a lot of irresponsible people during the year, which increased the amount of the workload that came with that and the busyness of the year. That's basically it. There is a paragraph that mentions it at the top of page 105, under increased commitments, overspend, and one of the reasons is for extreme business in the parking areas, and also irresponsible behaviour by other people, leaving litter and placing a further burden. What we found is that we have to spend more, and that's because people just behave irresponsibly, and then the costs then on the authority then to collect the refuse. Now, I don't know the answer to that, but there certainly has been pressure put on people at Llyn Tegid, and I know in that area it also contributed to it, and that's been part of the problem. Now, in terms of the collection of waste material generally, I've spoken to people in the legal department in terms of possible prosecutions, but the words are that if a lot of people, basically, if we are to expect a lot of people to arrive in the area, then we're to expect a lot of refuse left behind that must be collected. As Dewi said, the fact that we're busy, there are implications with that.
Yeah,
yes, thanks. Just a general question, and thank you for bringing that in front of us. It's fairly good news, a bit of temporary money for a brief period of time. But I just want to know, how much do we get from the government On top of that, financial period, with regards to slippage, how much warning do we get? We're told about November what the grant will be for the year to come. So that's the grant that Eryri and the two authorities act on. But I think Sian can tell us more regarding what we're doing. I think it's January, February. It does vary. It can be as late in the day as weeks before the financial year ends. But we have raised this with government officers and also the Cabinet Secretary. But we said, look, we appreciate the money, honest, but it would be a lot better being able to have a system where we could forward plan. But we don't want to lose the money either, you know. So it's a very delicate way of communicating with them. So the situation is not one that won't happen in the future, no. If I can come in, sometimes there are requirements for information that happen without warning. And we do respond, but we that was incomprehensible, sorry. Right, okay. So there are opportunities, you know, other sources of funding, but we don't lose goodwill either. And we have to, you know, be applying for this money responsibly, and it's quite a delicate balance. And it reflects the way that people deal with government. Yeah. Well, this is a point following on from the rubbish. It's a significant increase in terms of what you place down. It's 28,000 more than we budgeted for, but I can sympathise as someone who works in the countryside as a rural councillor. We've seen all sorts of litter left, including medical rubbish left, and a three-piece street left in Brithdiv. So as well as the normal rubbish, this has become a weekly fly-tip collection for a rural county councillor. It's a problem that's getting worse, and it's obvious that you've reflected that in the costs. But what are we going to do about this? We can't continue to spend all this money either in the ward or in the park, where we have so we've done it. It was very effective, but generally, I agree. It's a problem, but it's not going to disappear. People will continue to leave waste, and we have to collect it. Well, maybe we could communicate messages to them in the car parks when they arrive. And we need to reach different audiences as well. Yeah, I'm glad to see that there are plans that will be done. Tim, did you want to come in, or is that a legacy hunt? Right, just saying, I've got nothing against, you know, the grant stuff, but where it falls down is that, you know, you need the staff, you know, and with new staff, a year's gone by, or, you know, there's only 6 months left to go. Well, you know, they're going to be looking for a new job already. I don't want to take the money either, but as long as we are told, I mean, look, I was in a meeting in November in Pembrokeshire, and the 3 parks were there. And there was talk, wasn't there, that there are grants available. And what we needed when we were discussing them, there has to be in place already so that we know we can plan ahead. Joe, I see your hands. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's okay, thank you.
Okay, Ivor.
And Ivor.
And Sgil, cwestiwn Joe.
Well, in light of Joe's question,
Mi oedd ymgyrch
the campaign regarding plastic on the Wyddfa, Snowdon,
trio datrys y broblem yma.
what's being done to resolve this problem, though? Well, the work continues. And to tell you the truth, there's nothing specific. But this work is quite innovative, is continuing in a lot of the areas, and especially regarding bottles. And we have stuff happening, because like Llanberis and so on, stuff that's arisen from these projects that is now continued. So I'm pretty sure Aled will have more information for you. Yeah, I'm just looking to see if this funding arises and the problem continues, would it be worth bringing a report specifically about this to see how we can change things? People with experience of doing so. Yeah, 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 we can do that. Great, thanks. Thanks, Ivor. Salamatu.
Yes, I just wanted to still talk about the. I'm concerned that the legal department is just wanting the park to accept the fact that once you have tourists coming in, the more people you have, the more waste you're expected to deal with. I think there is an opportunity to look elsewhere to see what others or other parks are doing in terms of, handling waste. I think it's irresponsible for tourists to come and litter places and for it to be accepted. I think it will be worthwhile to investigate or to research on ways that this can be dealt with once and for all, because it is not sustainable to keep spending money on dealing with litter or waste when something can be done.
Yes,
I wouldn't disagree with anything Salamata said there. And what's happening at the moment, I would agree. Yeah, I'd agree that there is a need for further work in this, and something will come in front of you later on. And I'll be glad to air further ideas, and hopefully that they can work. Okay, well, thanks. Right, Ivor. Yeah, sorry. I've had more than one go, haven't I? I just want to ask Debbie, with the results regarding the tourist tax, do you think we'll get some of that money? They say a few million to the authorities. Will we get something of that? I'm not in a situation to say anything at the moment. I think it's a situation for the 22 councils to determine, to see whether they wish to introduce the tax, but they're not the ones who collect the money. But there's an element here. For example, if Gwynedd vote one way and Dwyfr and Connaught votes another, then monies would come in from certain places. There is specific stuff with regards to the specific uses of the money as well. I think a lot of it's still down to discussion though, and specifically the two councils and who would be able to make best use of said monies and be able to take advantage of it. So I think the arrangements that have been introduced and that will be put in place, I mean, my full understanding situation is that at the moment. But how do you see the CIGC? I think things are changing so quickly. How do you see them getting the money too? There's been talk that some money will go to them as well. And we're part of the CJC, aren't we? Yes. Well, yeah, we are part of it for strategic planning purposes. And of course, the CJC has wider responsibilities than that. But it's possible. If we look at what every individual authorities have done, and if we're talking about CJC, then we're talking about an authority for a North Wales area. So if the government doesn't determine that they're going to refer to specific resources within the CJC, then it'll be a matter for the government to determine how they want to spend. I would have thought so, and we're going to be reliant on that. But if both authorities decided they wanted to introduce the tax in some way or the other, well, then it would then go back to what is the use of it. I mean, we can't use the tourist tax to top up a levy or council tax. It's there for a specific purpose, and we have to show that we're using that money to cope with the additional burden that tourism costs. And then it'll be up to the government to make the case for with that and how the money is spent. Yeah, right. But very, very, very quickly, there is talk that there will be some community benefits from the wind farms. So there will be pots of money around to help the budget, the funding in future. But has anybody been talking to Welsh Government about this or the Crown regarding this? As an authority, no.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I look forward to hearing back with regards to that element, because people or things are moving quite quickly at the moment. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah,
yeah, just coming back in about the minister, in terms of why we're getting the money, why we're not getting the money, and then sorry, I missed that. Well, we were told that you're going to go and look into that.
Just sorry,
yeah, just remembered one thing to answer your question. We have received money from the wind farms because the effects that they've had, there's been an agreement where we have received a chunk of money, and it's quite substantial, and that's because of the effect of landscape damage. So this was raised by planning officers of the authority. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, Conwy, ourselves, and Ynys Môn have led on this. Yeah, thanks. I forgot about it. I knew there was something. Yeah, thanks. No problem. Thank you. Okay, well, thanks for your contribution there, and thanks for the recommendation that the report. So there's 6 recommendations. Are we happy to approve them? Can you show, please? Show of hands. Excellent, thank you all very much, and thank you everyone for contributing. So, on now to item 13. So 24-25 report of the Treasury. Yeah, it's just more information, and if you have any questions, it's up to every authority to present such reports and just explain what the activity of the Treasury is. So you'll see in paragraph 3.1 summary, we received interest, and you see in the previous item where it was for the previous year, and the authority did not do any other such activities during the year, and so the investment has happened through the bank accounts. There's not been any other form of investment. So, and you'll see pages 120, 121, what's been used and the range of banks that we used. We have ensured that you're familiar with some of their names. We've ensured that they are the safest in order to protect our investments. They are low risk, and yet they have brought in £380,000 worth of interest. So if you look there at Barclays, Bank of Scotland, part of the Lloyds Group, HSBC, Santander, and the Nationwide Building Society. So we're investing in different ones and spread the risk. Then they're already low risk anyway. But despite that, we've managed that. So that's all I have to say. Thanks. Any questions? Please. I'm just going to move. But before I do, I had a question with regards to the institutions, and I mean these are very familiar banking names. Does our strategy look at activities of the banks themselves, or the people we're investing with, to ensure that they comply with our purposes, or that there's no activity they're investing in that goes against our core principles? What work is being done to ensure that? Yeah, the statement is one you passed at the beginning of the financial year to say that we invest in institutions that are moral. Of course, it's difficult to argue this with some of the banks. They don't all have the best name in the world, but we would always refer to what's been passed by the authority. There is nothing that's come to our attention that we shouldn't be investing in, and it hasn't been passed as part of the strategy statements. But it's something we're keeping under control. We're getting advice, and we're ensuring that stuff is done and that a direction is set as an authority for the whole year, and we're acting on that. Yeah, that's great. What I just wanted was certainty that the risk to organisations is one factor, and we're very pleased. But I just want to ensure that we're not investing in any organisation that perhaps supports activities that go against our core purposes as an organisation. I thought I'd make that note, and I want it noted. Thank you. Right.
John Peel?
Yeah.
Okay. John. Yeah, thanks. As Gwynedd Council, we do get a training in this, and perhaps it would be a help for members of the PAC to be part of that course and to see where the investments go. I think there's different investments, and I think, for example, a pension fund with 1 million assets is one thing. What we're talking about here is cash and also money in the bank already. The expenditure has been organised. I'm with Cyngor Gwynedd Council, and I look at the property investments, and the majority of money in Gwynedd Council is in bank accounts. Mostly in as cash, and so if you want to share this training, but it would be it would be really looking at it on a scale of Gwynedd or Conwy Council even. Okay, well, thanks very much. So let's move on to item 14. It's the policy payment statement. And Gina, you're joining with us, so you're welcome. Thanks. Yeah, I'm presenting this on behalf of Nia Murray today. It's our wages policy statement and annual report for wages policy. And in Appendix 1, you'll see the authorities' wages policy for 24-25. And in Appendix 2, it shows the chief officer's wages. And Appendix 3 shows all the other stuff. And in Appendix 4 is the annual report. Oh, by the way, does anyone have any questions so far on this information? Well, thanks, Gina. If I may come in, I poured through the report, and I'm quite certain that there is a mistake there in Appendix 2 when it comes to director's report. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm pretty certain I've not had a promotion in terms of wages. Yeah, so it's a typo. And so I would ask that these figures are revised and correctly printed to show the true figure. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. So if that's possible, Gina, yes, of course. So any other questions to ask, Gina? Okay, are you okay to receive the more recent figures later on, yeah? So there is a recommendation for the payment policy. So with subject to amendment of those figures, do we take this as correct? Yeah. Yeah, so we receive recommendations subject to receiving the correct figures. And a re-presentation. We all happy with that? Yeah, happy, good. And thank you, Gina, for that. Johan, item 14, annual report. And I'd like to thank you and the team who've done a lot of additional work. And the additional work going on. So thanks, Johan. For the additional work you've done with the PLAS. So if I can go through this briefly, just to remind you of the period that we were observing up to 2023. Is quite a challenging year, and we appointed a new digital content officer, and that was quite different to the previous job, who was mainly responsible for running just the website. So wanted to change tack slightly with the digital content that we put out. So under those appendices, and what we put together is the idea that impressions were down 23% or hits, and then if you looked at the stats in a more detailed manner, well, actually, we are putting on far more content than we were previously, and the videos that we put out measured up to 139. There's been an increase of 20.5% engagement. So those people that have clicked on the content have either liked it or left a comment, and so the engagement is far greater. And we're on 4.43% in terms of engaging with regards to public sector standards. So anything that looks at 2 to 5% improvement is good. Anything over 5 is brilliant. And we're on 4.43%, and hopefully by next year it will have gone above 5%, so we'll have hit that excellent standard there. And then the number of followers that we have, 66,000, 233,000, so we're up 14% on the number of people who follow us digitally. So, in that first appendix, it comes out of 2021, and just a few of the highlights of the year itself, just to show context in terms of the work that's been done. We mentioned appointing a new digital officer, so we're going to re-establish the TikTok account as well, following a change in Welsh Government guidelines, which enables us now to reach younger and more diverse audiences, which is where we weren't engaging usually. And that's definitely something where we can push the boundaries a bit and reach more people. And I would have thought, in looking at the stats from this year, next year will be much higher, where we may be able to reach hundreds of thousands of people on the videos. Good work has also been happening with communications, and also the same officer responsible, and has had it's been very successful when one considers the SFS plans and how the public in Eryri have dealt with that. Also, we've been promoting less well-known areas because the comments we got was that we're placing far too much feedback on Yr Wyddfa rather than Bala and Aberdyfi and quieter places. So we've been pushing on quite areas where the infrastructure may not be there. We've done a lot of work with new partnerships. And also, we're almost working as a sub-team with the Eryri Sea and Mountains team and the Gwynedd and Eryri visitation team. That's also to be seen as one of those possibilities where one of the additional considerations, and it's great to see that we reached 1.25 million people, and the opportunity to link that has been brilliant. As you know from other reports, one of the main jobs we did was to make the decision to use only Welsh names like Eryri and Rwyddfa, and adapt everything accordingly. And in the website, one thing to note is where we find ourselves on search engines like Google. We're still #1 on the majority of search engines that we wish to reach. And though we don't use the terms Snowdon, Snowdonia, it's very important that we still reach those, because it's what people still use when searching. And we continue to be #1 when people are Googling Snowdon, Snowdonia, and we've risen when people look for the keyword Snowdon. So the authority also took part in 43 engagements in the media, 27 press releases, 22 responses, all prepared, and we continue to use the script company Cove annually. I do feel that's a key part, and it's very good when it looks at video content as well, where we've been able to look at, say, 2 or 3 staff to give any contribution simultaneously, and then very briefly, when 6 months into the year, we've been looking around 2025. One of the things we've been doing is looking at how we strengthen our comms, and so we've got a good network. We work well with Traffic Cymru, North Wales Police, and we've got personalities working in those areas that work well together, and so we can strengthen each other's messages and help each other when needed. We also work very well and more closely, and have made relationships with the mountain rescue teams area, because we've also done specific work with Mynydd Ogwen, and I hope, it does extend to Llanberis, and I do hope that we can do Aberglastin and the south of Eryri later on in the year. And some work will arise, obviously, with tourism and Plas Tanabl, and there is work coming up with branding the national parks of Britain and strengthening the relationship around the park. Also, we want to create more inclusive messages regarding accessibility, and some of you may have seen the YouTube series. They've been quite successful. Also the Silvercom, and then moving more into digital is in a really good place at the moment, so we'll look at interpretation within the site, and there's a lot of work going on in Llangower and Gwynant, and if you look at the signage outside, and we think people can improve this still over the next few years, because we're going to have to do it, not just with Google, but also we can replace things as the need arises. So that's quite a long-term job. So just addressing 1 or 2 points that have arisen in the meeting that I hope will answer some of the questions on the additional work we're doing. So the work of meeting those varied audiences, and we're working very closely with Tosca Mani from National England, with messaging and how we engage with Also, we were targeting cities like Liverpool, Manchester, London, with peer data and with the police. I don't think, to be honest, that's worked too well. But we do try and ensure that people who come here from cities see it. But I'm wondering whether we're just wasting money. I mean, there are other ways that we can work with the police, where we can give out messages to Delyth from North Wales Police, who then hands it over to the forces over the border for them to share on their accounts. And obviously, we've opened a TikTok account, and we intend to expand upon that. It's working well, or so it seems. And additionally, I just want to raise the fact that the partnership team, differently to us, is holding a series of symposiums on management. On 3 of them will focus on communities and EDI messaging. So it'll give an insight into kind of communication to do as a department. And happy to take any questions.
Delyth, wyt ti glaw i ni?
Sorry, ma' 'na siarad ar draws.
Mae John Pugh, dwi'n meddwl, efo mae'n eitha agor. Os ydych chi'n mute, John?
Diolch.
Iawn.
John. Ie.
Ocê.
Iawn, ie. Diolch. Diolch yn fawr, Ioan.
Thank you, Ioan. The work of the team is brilliant. This report is really good with regard to the work, and congratulations really on the achievement and the content of the report, and the communications is reflected in the digital metrics, which shows that people engage more and more and like the content, and that's a really good thing. One question that I have, and a comment in a way, with regard to the beginning of the report, on page 3, you talk about the desired communication outcomes. I can't see the link with that with regard to the performance outcomes on the risks relating to page 73 of the risk report. In the work programme, I apologise, Delyth just made a mistake there. In the communication and engagement strategy, I'd like to see more links with the desired outcomes with the performance indicators. In the list of 11, looking to increase awareness of the national park designation, for example, it talks about more awareness and understanding. It's really difficult to measure awareness. It's all about perception, and Matrix will show that people do engage with this because they like what's put in front of them, but does that change their perception of the work? Does it change from something negative to being something more positive? I'd like a bit more thought to that. The metrics just show the volume of the engagement, but do people understand more about the work? And that's the real measure, and that's what we're looking for. If we could do that, then we could have a baseline for what people's perceptions are of the park's work now, and then measure it over a period of time. That's more qualitative with regard to surveys as well. So happy to have a discussion with you on that as well, Ioan. Point 10 of the desired outcomes strategy. This is an internal one. It's a bit vague when the staff and volunteers feel that they have got information. Good information about what? How do you measure that? And what's the result of that? So just a few minor things that need a bit more work, but happy to have a further discussion with you on that. Thank you very much. communication changes so quickly at the moment. So this is something that was re-adopted in 2022 and really needs updating by now. And I'm intending to create a new one for next year. And I'd be very happy to have a discussion with you if that's okay. Thanks, Delyth and Johan.
Diolch am hwn, Iwan.
Thanks for this, Johan. It really is very special. Just, I have a general question, really, regarding the free radicals. People who communicate on TikTok and Reels on Instagram, and they create honeypots. I can see it with the Watkin pools, for example, the infinity pools, and it creates problems. Is there any way in which we can respond to that and get somebody to scrutinize those so that we can reduce the pressure on these places? You'll see sometimes when it's warm, such as this weekend, people post things on TikTok. Next thing, it's there's a parking problem trying to handle the people, and it creates problems. Is there any way that we can handle that by communicating? Nothing definite has been arranged yet. Angela has undertaken a lot, and from the partnership team has undertaken a lot of interviews earlier on in the year. There are two things that we're discussing at the moment. We've made a visitor promise and also with Cyngor Gwynedd and businesses so that they become responsible business owners and responsible visitors. But there may be potential there to make a digital promise so that these influencers sign up to it so that we have positive influences. But there are also other discussions ongoing on how we can work with companies and influencers and how they can convey messages, and so that these brands sign up to a pledge from us and they refer that to the influencers that they pay. There's nothing definite at the moment, but the only other thing that we do is we're trying to produce responsible content, of course, and there are things that we can have some effect on, but there are it's really hard work. It's difficult to engage with everybody, but engaging them about the Sherpa, for example, just so that people go in the right direction. It seems to have worked with the business pledge, and perhaps we can do the same type of thing with the digital pledge as well. Thanks. Anybody, any further comments? Just really quickly, this has been a long meeting. In the context of communication, for information, you'll be aware, I'm sure, that the legislation that created the UK parks in 1949, there were 4 of the 15 parks in 1951, and we were one of the 4 of the first parks, and we're celebrating 75 next year. And there will be different events being held throughout the UK and certainly in Eryri. And we've started discussions on that, and we'll provide you with a report on the ideas that we have later on this year. Obviously, the first one was the Lake District, and that was the 4th. So those are 4 parks that will be celebrating 75 next year, but we'll give you a report on that. Salamator, did you want to come in there?
Yes, I just wanted to add that I think recently it's I've had to deal with some misinformation, and I feel that it's always good. It's part of safeguarding as well, and also to include in the risk assessment if we don't have it. So it's of course it's under communication, it's important that if you don't have misinformation, some training in that aspect, it's important that you do, and you have the tools in place, just so that you can respond to negative communication, negative press, and things like that. So I just thought I should drop it here, because it can be very big, and it can be negative on the whole organization itself.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. We'll keep those in mind. Rhys, a very brief comment. Like John said, it's been a long meeting. I'll start by saying congratulations, because this is a very inclusive report, and it reflects the authority. As a member of the public, the way that the communication is building, and you have that feeling of belonging, and I just wanted to congratulate you on that. One thing that we could track in a way to see what the response is sentiment, of course, how people respond to posts. Is it the response negative or positive? That's a way that lots of people use to see what works well. And I'm just wondering if that's being tracked by you. There's no reference in the report to that, but is there a way of using sentiments as the way of planning towards the future? We'll certainly discuss that. Most of the sentiments are positive. It's the use of Welsh. It's very much in the minority, but that's the one that comes up more often than not. But we'll discuss that at a team as well. This has been a beneficial meeting, and we're going to draw it to a close. Everybody's made good contributions, and thanks to everybody who have contributed to today's meeting. So with those few words, I'll just thank everybody and wish you well for the rest of the day. Thank you for attending.
We will. After this.
Hello?
Hello.
Who am I meeting with?
You're meeting Kira here, and myself to go through the
Okay.
training session. So we will contact you by Teams after this meeting. So in what, 10 minutes? 10 minutes. That's you okay?
Should I still remain on this call, or you're sending me another link?
Don't remain on this call. We'll contact you by Teams.
Oh, will you send me a link? Yeah.
So a link will be sent to you very shortly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Dwi ddim yn meddwl naethon ni gael bleidlais neu cytuno